Gattaca is a story about one man's dream of space travel, in a future where only the genetically perfect and engineered are offered such privileges. Today we'll discuss the many themes of Gattaca along with its vision of the future and its emotional look at human determination. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizen.
Audio podcast, yes. Are you picking up Tim's bad habits where you do like a visual high?
I don't think so.
Every episode on streams, like Tim will just do like a little nod or away, and I'm like, Tim, it's an audio podcast too. Like you have to say something.
I just felt like, I don't know, pointing at myself.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and we talk about a movie. It's really quite that simple. We are talking today about a movie called Gattaca. It's 90s season. We're working through a bunch of 90s movies for the most part until at least the end of November, I think. And this was one that was obviously in contention to do. And we kind of tried to pick movies that we either hadn't seen or felt that we need to revisit because it'd been so long. Because the plan at the end of this season, when we get to the end of the year, around New Year's, we're going to do a top 25 sci-fi movies of the 90s. And Tara had said that, well, she's seen this a long time ago. She kind of, doesn't remember it that well. I
needed to revisit, yeah.
They needed to go back, and I like the movie a lot. Just to spoil that now, I think Gattaca's great. So I had no complaints about saying, yeah, let's get Gattaca done. Let's do that finally. So that is the plan today. The premise of Gattaca is that we're in the not too distant future, and that is the exact words that is used at the start of the film. Doesn't specify, which is smart.
We're in time and space.
There you go. Which is smart. Hell, they're even sending up rockets. In fact, hell, technically he's even a janitor. Oh shit, there's a lot of correlations here. Anyway, so yeah, it's in the future where science has cracked like genetics to the point where as soon as you're born, they can test your blood and it'll say how likely you are to get certain medical conditions, how likely you are to die by a certain age, that kind of thing. And it kind of breeds a new type of social class and prejudice where companies and anything important only want to deal with people who are expected to have long, healthy lives, and anyone who is deemed likely to have like a heart problem or something like that, by a certain age, they don't want you. It's like a new form of discrimination. So, like science fiction does, it uses this to kind of talk about just how we are in real life with other things, but it does it in this different way where, it's about ambition, it's about human spirit and determination, and the idea of like us believing we can do something even if the odds are very much against us. So the plot revolves around Ethan Hawke's character Vincent, who is someone who is told he's likely to die in his early 30s via heart failure. So he can't do what he wants to do, but he dreams of being an astronaut. He dreams of going into space, and Gattaca is where all the space launches go from in this version of the future. And the movie's about him effectively faking an identity of someone who does have good genetics, someone played by Jude who has the perfect genetics but was in an accident and broke his back, so things like that can still happen, obviously, where you could have your health taken from you via external forces, but so it's all about him faking his way into the space program and faking his way to achieve his dream because the system won't let him do it under any other circumstance. And that's the basic gist of it, and we'll get into all the ins and outs. We'll obviously start spoiler free. We'll give you warnings before we go into spoilers, all that good stuff. But you're the one that needed to revisit this, so I'm excited to ask Tara, what did you think of Gattaca?
I like Gattaca quite a bit. I definitely saw it when it came to like HBO, and if you've had like any biology class, I feel like the professors find a reason to play Gattaca. I feel like I've watched it a couple times in school. But yeah, it's a great science fiction concept. It's a cool world. I like the design of it. I like the themes that are being played here, the social commentary, even the stuff about relationships and brothers is pretty strong in this as well.
Oh, sure.
And the music's really great. I didn't really know the music before, but
I love the music.
Really
Yeah,
noticed it in this viewing.
the main track, Departure, which plays near the start and also at the very end, is it's it's a perfect. It's the sort of track you can put on and listen to and just enjoy it. It's so dramatic and like emotional.
Do you know who the composer is?
Not off the top of my head, but I can
Okay.
tell you
Not one of the big ones, maybe.
very very quickly who it is. Oh god. Ooh. Do you know what? It's actually one that's harder to find on IMDb is the composer, because it's not, obviously you get director, producer, and writers at the top.
I've had to search for it before as well.
Yeah. So you have to go to the full cast and crew and then just search either music or composer and hope you get it. Michael Neiman is the composer.
I don't really know.
Yeah, I have to say I don't really recognize the name that much outside of this. A quick look at his page. He did the piano and the Cook the Feast, the Wife and His Lover. It looks like some French movies, so maybe he's more in French cinema than he is Hollywood, so maybe that's why we don't know his stuff as much. But it's fantastic though. The music's fantastic. I love the music in this film. There's a lot of play here. Obviously you've got this the simple science fiction, like we're going to make this like very typically attractive white straight guy the one who's discriminated against, because that lets us like view discrimination through a different lens than we normally would. But it also lets us look at human rights, the human spirit, all those things. And like you said, he's got a brother who we find out about in the flashbacks early on, who the parents decided after the quote unquote failure of Ethan Hawke's birth, they're going to do it the way all the other parents are doing it now, which is they go to like genetic doctors who like engineer the baby to be perfect and be the best possible baby they can make, and it's kind of this like artificial way of doing it. But he has him to compare to. There's the idea of like human kindness, and then of course just the idea of like, well, they're not necessarily arrested or anything like that for being invalids, as they're called, or what was the other word he used that made me laugh? It was like
love baby or something.
No. It was
baby.
It was like degenerate,
Gotcha.
but part of the word was like changed to be like degenerate, degenerate, or something. It was something stupid like that. It made me chuckle. But it did feel a lot like a police state in some ways. Like you almost got the like they're policing for hairs and like saliva and anything that's left behind in case one of you is a sneaky invalid like running around,
Yeah.
There was a lot of those kind of vibes.
Did you get the feeling that there was no currency in this universe anymore in our future?
No, there was definitely money, because like so Toya Shalhoub has a small role, who's the guy who sets up
That's right. Okay.
a thingy with Jude Law, and his payment for like doing all this is that he gets 25% of whatever Ethan Hawke's going to make in this new job. So there's definitely some form of currency.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, if they had genes that determined what job you'd be best suited for, then it wouldn't matter exactly, because that's what you were sort of bred for this job.
Oh, sure, yeah. No, and I think that's kind of what Jude Law's getting out of the whole deal as well, is that he's letting him use his identity and his DNA and stuff, and in return, Ethan Hawke keeps him in the life he's accustomed to by paying for his lavish lifestyle.
Right,
his apartment and all these,
That's true. That is the line that gets brought up.
Yeah.
Of course, there are deeper reasons, I think, why Jude Law is really allowing this.
Oh, of course, yeah. It gets to that, as the film goes on, and we'll talk about that. There's other stuff, and obviously the cast is great. Obviously, we've mentioned Ethan Hawke in the lead role. Jude Law is the sort of the good genetic person that is going to let him use his identity. Uma Thurman's love interest, which is notable because Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman actually did get married, and their daughter is a good little actress now. That sounds really demeaning the way I said that, but I mean, like Maya Hawke's very good. I like her in Stranger Things a lot. So you've got all them. You've got Xander Berkeley in a role, and he's not like a huge actor, but he's one of those faces that pops up a lot, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. Most people probably know his face from Terminator 2. He's the foster father for John Connor. But he's been in 24. He's popped up in an episode of the X-Files, and he's been in Heat, I think, as well. He's in a lot of things.
Yeah, he's just a reliable actor. Good face.
Yeah. Alan Arkin is in here.
Oh yeah, speaking of reliable.
Yeah, he's a detective. The father of Ethan Hawke is played by Elias Koteas, who's another like really dependable actor. Apparently Maya Rudolph's got a mask on at one point, and she's there. And of course, the most important of all is Greg Sestero, who plays Mark in The Room, who you can see the back of his head in one shot if you look really closely.
I saw he's listed as uncredited, and so I'm like, oh, where is he? And then I didn't see him at all when I watched the movie, so I had to look it up separately.
It's a shame. I was watching, because you told me this before we started, so I was watching like a hawk, no pun intended, to see him, and because I wanted to yell out, "Oh hi, Mark," when I saw him, and
yeah, exactly.
And I never did. It's only the back of his head, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So yeah, very 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 good, strong, dependable cast, kind of like sprinkled all throughout, for sure. Mm-hmm. And I actually think the film's quite beautiful at times as well. Like there's a lot of shots of like him at various points looking up at the rockets taking off, because there's like 12 rocket launches a day at Gattaca, and he's looking up, and every time it does it, like the CG for the rocket launch isn't actually that good, but it doesn't really matter. It still looks quite pretty, the way you just get this sort of streak of the smoke and the fire when he's looking up, and he's usually like dawn or dusk.
Glass ceiling. Glass ceiling, you mean?
At one point it is, yeah. There's actually some really fun lines, because in the flashbacks early on, when we're seeing him working as a janitor, and he's like looking up at it, I love like the guys working, like the head janitor's like, "Oh, you dreaming of space? Here's a space for you right here. Start by cleaning that."
Ernest Borgnine?
Oh, I don't know. It could be.
I love that. I love like the head of the group of people that we see who are not genetically favorable is Ernest Borgnine.
It is, yeah, you're right. Ernest Borgnine.
Another dependable classic Hollywood.
He's not someone I recognized immediately, but now I'm looking him up. Yeah, okay, he's been in Poseidon Adventure, Escape from New York.
Okay. He's been so much.
Yeah. Okay.
You watch anything from the 60s, 70s, even 80s, especially television, like he's there.
Yeah. Also, I'm just laughing because Greg Sestero is literally the last name in the cast on IMDb. That's quite funny.
Yeah, it is a pretty impressive cast, though.
Yes. Both including and in spite of him. So
he's probably the best actor in the room.
In the room, I was going to say in this. I was like, "What, are you crazy?"
Back of his head, yeah, it's great acting.
Good back of the head actor, yeah. That's fair. So no, it's really really good cast. Music's great. It looks good. It's a very conservative style of the future where, yeah, things are quite sleek and stuff, but it's not going over the top with it. So even though it was made in 1997, it's not actually aged that much in its depiction of the future. The only real thing is at one point someone answers a cell phone, and it's like, yeah, it's a bit chunky looking for the future. But other than that, it kind of works and feels quite timeless.
Yeah, some of the like photos they use, the digital photos and stuff, also look very pixelated. Yeah,
sure, that's fair. Which almost plays into the plot a little bit, because the whole point is like when they see Jude Law's face in the mugshot and Ethan Hawke's meant to look close enough. Like, I buy it in the photo they're showing me, but I think in a clear photo I would never buy it. But
yeah, they're clearly two different people.
But that's fine. Like, it works because like that plays into the themes though, is that all these like elite assholes just wouldn't fathom that they're being tricked by someone. They wouldn't fathom that someone's in here who's actually an invalid, somehow keeping up with them. So there's a thematic little touch to it, which always helps out little things like that feel a bit far-fetched to me. If there's a thematic point to it, I'll happily take it. Like, I won't care.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So yeah,
I mean, maybe dates the movie a bit, but I think it's something you can ignore easily.
Oh sure, yeah.
To get into the themes.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue it's not dated that much, but you're right. Like, I don't really mind if it is a bit dated, but yeah. Yeah, but overall, I'd say it's aged quite well. Where the biggest thing about it that feels old to me is just how young a lot of these actors look, because I'm used to them like in more recent times.
I haven't seen Uma in very much recently, but definitely Ethan Hawke's having a bit of a comeback.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke's done a lot of stuff recently.
He was in Moon Knight, and Black Mask Black Phone. Yeah, Black Phone was quite big, successful anyway.
I feel like I saw him in something else recently as well, but yeah, he's very prolific.
He does weird horror movies also, right? That you've probably watched.
Very possibly. I mean, what else has he been in recently? I mean, this was a few years ago now, but he was in a movie called First Reformed, which was very good, where he played a priest. And it's funny because as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, this has got some like parallels to Taxi Driver, but with a priest instead. And it turned out the writer was the same writer as Taxi Driver. I was like, oh, he's doing his shtick. But it was good though. It was
if it ain't broke.
It was an interesting look at kind of like a priest who is starting to disagree with the actions of the church, and he feels kind of like helpless, sort of in his role.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you'd like it.
Probably.
I think you'd like it. But yeah. Oh, he was in The Northman. I haven't watched that yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Oh yeah, he's the father. I haven't seen it yet either.
Yeah. Very good. So no. Yeah, very strong cast is what I'm saying. So yeah. As far as just general feelings and stuff, then I think we've mostly said it. But I think I find myself like. I love, as much as I'm a cynical, jaded bastard at times, I do love tapping into optimism of humanity where it feels right. And there's a couple of moments in this that I can really get into, and I really... This whole idea of like proving that you can do something when everyone says you can't is definitely an easy trait for me to like get behind. And probably most people, I imagine, there's something really fulfilling about it, of like being told, no, you can't do this thing. Well, screw you, I'm going to do it anyway. There's something really satisfying about that as like just a story, and inherently. And I think there's a couple of moments in this that do actually get me a little teary-eyed, and I won't say what they are until we get into spoilers, but but maybe my very tough demeanor might be shattered by the end of this. I don't know. When I tell you what moments get me emotional.
I don't know that I got emotional watching the movie, but I wouldn't. I mean, I guess I can guess a couple of moments where that would be possible for you. But yeah, it's some really good themes in it. I guess the obvious one would be ableism to compare to, but it's probably just all the isms, right? Racism, sexism, ageism, all that stuff. And
yeah, I mean, I think
that you can use as a parallel.
Any form of discrimination, anything where someone is not going to be given a chance at a job or a chance at something because someone's just written them off already for whatever reason. That's there. I mean, obviously social class is another big one that plays into it as well. So yeah, I love all the subjects it tackles, and I think it doesn't necessarily tackle every single one of them full head on, but they all kind of just nicely bake into the overall thing that it's doing, and it doesn't feel like it's betraying any of them by not focusing on all of them, because it would probably struggle if it tried to do that. But they just all neatly fit into this world. It's got a really strong central premise that lends itself to we could sit here and like sort of almost dissect the movie through different lenses if you take any one of these things that it's doing and just look at it through that lens the entire time. Obviously we're not going to do that today. Today we're going to talk about the sort of the main ones that it focuses on, but like any good science fiction, you can do that though.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we talk about the spoiler side of things, I'll say why, but I find this to be kind of a good double feature with The Matrix also, just with the overarching message that's going out there. And yeah, I don't know, it's a good movie.
All right, we'll say spoilers.
I was going to go somewhere else, but I can't remember.
That's fine. We'll just say spoilers then. We'll get into the film and talk about all the ins and outs. The movie starts kind of a week before Ethan Hawke's character Vincent is going to go into space. Right, it's about a week from when he's going to leave. We get a sort of sense that he's like he sort of explains it later, but we see him like try and like shed as much loose skin as he can with like sort of like tough brush and clipping his nails, making sure there's no loose hairs as best he can, and he burns all the remains of all these things after he's done it. And he's like taking in like a bag of piss with him, so he's got someone's piss to to be tested and stuff. That's not his own. Not because it's not like normal. This is because he's like a coke addict or something. This is just because his piss would reveal that he is not him, because they're constantly monitoring, they're constantly testing these things. So, and we sort of end this opening little prologue section with him, like watching as someone basically someone finds a dead body in the building at Gattaca, and it turns out to be like the director of flights or something, or director of missions or something, and that's when the narration comes in, and we go back, and Ethan Hawke has a lengthy kind of like flashback narrated prologue of, here's this world, here's who I am, here's the situation. And there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Bet you're wondering how I got here.
Yeah, a little bit. But I think the world's so dense that you kind of have to have something like this. You have to kind of explain what the world is. I
appreciate the setup, actually.
The music does a lot to help it, and there's a lot of good little moments here, because I think it's before the flashback. We kind of alluded to this when we were talking before we started recording, but there's a moment here where we see him go in for like a piss test, and he goes in, and Xander Berkeley's his character's the doctor who does a lot of these tests, and he's kind of casual and there's a nice bookend here actually, because this is the scene where he says, I should tell you about my son sometime. That's actually quite important because it comes up at the very, very end, so it's a nice little bookend for the whole story, and kind of reveals that he kind of knew something the whole time. But in this scene, he's kind of he's got the catheter or whatever, or I don't even know if it's called that, if it's the other way around, but you know what I mean, he's shooting out the pee out of a tube into a bag, and we're just watching from behind, but there's some silly small talk where he's like, oh, you're not shy, you always go on command, and I'm like, aye, because he's just squeezing a bag. That's why he goes so easily. But he says,
so reliable.
He cracks a couple of jokes about, hey, have I ever told you Jerome's the name that he's using, because that's Jude Law's actual name. He's like, have I ever told you, Jerome, you've got a very well equipped piece of equipment there, you're very gifted. And he's like, only every time I come in. He's like, yeah, well, I see like 1,000 a day, and it's just and obviously this could come across as very silly, but the reason why it's not silly is just because right at the end of this little joke that it's not a joke to the audience, but it's like a joke, it's a small talk joke between them, is he says, oh, I wish my parents ordered me one like that. And it's that little bit at the end that says, that wasn't a dumb conversation, this was a very ingenious little bit of exposition that reveals, wait, what did he just say? He wishes his parents had picked one like that for him.
Yeah.
That tells you so much.
Right.
Right away.
It's still pretty funny though.
Oh, it's still pretty funny, but like, it just right away, you're like, okay, we're living in a different, because this is before he explains everything, because in the flashback, Ethan Hawke explains it all very in depth.
Yeah.
But this is like a little tease before we get there. Clue. Yeah. Just to like bring you into the world, and you're like, okay. So.
It also bookends well with the ending that he was looking at his penis a lot.
Yes, it actually does. Yeah, you're right. That also bookends the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a really funny scene, and it kind of makes you think about. Okay, so we know that, or we're going to find out that Ethan Hawke is not actually this guy, and that he is someone who is God-born, and all these people these thousands of penises that he's seen. Apparently nothing beats natural. That's like the gift for being God-born, is that you can
I mean, you could read into that. I think obviously he says at the end what actually tipped him off was something else. It wasn't the size of the penis that did it.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying like that's the like, because the parents will never pick a penis size, which seems wrong. Or maybe they can't pick that for their kid. I don't know. Like, maybe that's just not an option on the thing.
Or maybe
that's always going to be a roll of the dice.
Or maybe they're just too modest to like, because they'll all be judged if we say the biggest one. We'll take the biggest
but obviously they're going to say that, right?
Yeah, cool.
Because the dads are there too, so they're going to be like, yeah, the big one.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the movie, when he says, when he reveals that he kind of knows, we'll get to this properly later, but he says, FYI, right-handed guy, because everyone's right-handed now. The left-handed people have all been ironed out, at least out of the elites, right?
Yeah.
And so Ethan Hawke's left-handed, and he has to like switch. That's part of his like training to like take this role, if you will. But he says to him, like, right-handed guys don't hold it with their left hand. Can I just speak from experience here? I'm right-handed. I'll sweat. I'll go back and forth. I can hold it with either. This didn't track with me. This logic. It's fine.
Okay.
I'm just saying. There's no consistency to this.
You're ambidextrous, but only for very specific things.
I'm just saying, his logic didn't actually make much sense to me. And don't get me wrong, I get that in the context of the movie. It's not that he, like, because you could argue, say, about how would he know how, like, every other guy holds it? Well, he does, because he literally watches guys piss every single day. So the movie's telling me he's seen this and he knows this, so fair enough. But
honestly, I think the reason why the Ethan Hawke has a big penis is because is because the geneticists are mostly men who are just like, I don't want any competition, so I'm going to give everybody small penis.
Ah, very smart. Very smart.
What I'm thinking.
Okay. Very smart.
Like if I make everybody else's penis small, then I'm going to look great.
I mean, maybe
that's just going to be the new average. It's going to be a smaller size. That could probably solve a lot of problems.
I think it's just meant to be a little wink wink, like natural's better, and he ended up with a big dick because of it. I think that's all it's meant to be.
Or yeah, it is, because everything is the roll of the die. That's also a theme in this, and that even though he's 99% going to die at some point, or I mean 100% at some point, but in the movie
everyone's 100% at some point.
In his early 30s it's determined, right? So
yeah, but
he's the 1%, it's just you can't predict that. Even with these fancy future geneticists. Well, should be working on dinosaurs already. Come on.
Well, that's the thing. So he starts doing the flashback and explaining things, and he was conceived out of love, and people used to say that was the best thing. And it's like no one says that anymore, because now it's like, oh shit, he's got a high probability of all these things. So they kind of treat him with kid gloves like all the time, where like every single time he's like hurt or injured, we see that he won't be accepted into a school because the insurance to like take him on is too high, because he's more likely to get hurt. And just like little things like that. And then of course they have the brother, and they decide this time to go with the genetic stuff, and like they want to leave some stuff to chance. To like, yeah, okay, like we want to remove the risk of the diseases, but like everything else we'd like to, because I think the doctor says, oh, we can reduce like the chance of alcoholism and addiction and things like that. And like, oh no, we would like to leave that to chance. And he's like, no, trust me, like this is for the better. And they just kind of go with it.
Yeah, he's basically like, there are still things that could go wrong, so why not just, eliminate as many as possible? It's still you. It's still your DNA. It's just the best version of you. Which is anything a parent ever wants, I guess. Yeah.
Well, and I thought to myself when I was watching this scene, is that part of me feels like, are they charging for each thing they remove? Because this guy's selling them on all these features.
Oh, so the car salesman.
Yeah.
You need the true coat.
But at the same time, I'm thinking, in a way, logically, it does make sense. Like, my problem in the movie is the discrimination of the people who might get sick. Do I have a problem necessarily with babies that parents are just making sure have the best chance from the start? That part doesn't necessarily bother me that much. Like, from a moral standpoint.
Yeah, like eliminating the... it would be a good way to eliminate disease in general, I suppose.
Like, if you could like ensure that your pets would never get sick, like you would do it. You would.
Yeah, I would, but like what? But would it? She can still hurt herself.
I know, but if you could eliminate like a disease from happening to your dog, you would.
Okay, yeah.
You would absolutely do it.
Yeah, if I could say no cancer, I would absolutely.
Of course you would. So I don't necessarily blame the parents of this world for doing that part. It's the discrimination of anyone who does have like a risk, like because a big part of this movie, and it's set up really early on with when he's a teenager and he's sitting there and he's reading his space book because that's what he's into, and these parents are kind of like son, you need to be realistic. It's like there's a. Because he says, oh, there's a chance that I may not get heart disease. Like, and his dad says, yeah, but there's, 99 times out of 100 chance that you will. And Ethan Hawke says, it's not Ethan Hawke yet, technically. It's whoever's playing the teenage version. But he's like, I'll take those odds. And it's like, yeah, 1 in 100. There's worse odds than that. Absolutely
Vincent is his name.
Vincent, sorry, I keep saying Ethan Hawke.
I did too, yeah.
But
Vincent is his name because he couldn't get his father's name because his father wanted to save it.
That's right. He changes it at the last second because he finds out that he might die, and he starts and go, no. Let's go with Vincent instead of Antonio. We'll name the brother who's perfect after me. I don't want this one to have my name. His father's kind of a dick. Let's be honest. I mean, he ends this scene by saying the only way you'll see a spaceship is if you're cleaning it, which is a really shitty thing to say.
Yeah, but the narration kicks in, and he's right. Like, they won't accept someone like me. This is the world that they're setting up.
Yeah, this is where it sort of cuts ahead, and we see him, as a janitor at Gattaca. And I love that touch as well, is that he was literally working in this building as a cleaner, and no one, neither the rich elite, or not even necessarily rich, most of them seem to be, because it kind of goes hand in hand, but the elite who work there don't notice that this janitor has now become someone else. And even the cleaners, because he runs into the head cleaner at one point, he doesn't even realize he's talking to the guy who used to work for him. No one sees over the lines. No one's seeing it. It's and I think there's a sort of dramatic point made there as well, which is kind of neat. But obviously one of the big things that's set up in this section as well is the competitive spirit with the brother and the swimming, where they play chicken and they go out into the ocean and they swim out as far as they can until one of them chickens out and turns back, either because they're scared or because they just physically, they feel like, oh no, I can't go any further, or I won't be able to make it back, so they have to stop. And it was always Vincent that lost. But it's when they're teenagers, after he's basically sort of had this harsh reality told to him that he's never going to be able to do anything that he actually wants to, he's given this motivation to go out and swim with his brother one last time before he leaves. And on this night, he actually wins. Not only does he win, he has to save his brother because his brother starts drowning. And that's kind of something that's set up for later, whereas the question is, how did he do that? And which I actually love this through line. I love when they swim again towards the end of the film, and Ethan Hawke, reveals, do you want to know how I did that, how I beat you that day? It's because I never left anything for the swim back. Because it was all or nothing, and I just had to sort of do it on faith, and I kind of appreciate that, because there's actually not a lot of spirituality talk in this, or religion talk. I know they call the kids like him Godborn, because that's okay, you're just leaving it to chance.
It seems like a grandfathered in term.
Yeah, but there's not actually a lot of talk of religion itself, and I think there's a lot of faith in this movie, but it's more about just having faith in yourself and having faith that you can do something even if it seems impossible. It's a sort of faith that I more personally can get behind, that I'm more into. It's more hopeful and uplifting,
Sure, yeah, of course.
So it was warming my atheist heart, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I really like the stuff with the brother that's set up here, mostly because we get to see how the parents' dynamic has shifted once they have a son that is genetically as perfect as can be from their offspring, versus Vincent. And just seeing the height chart and stuff when Vincent's 8 and he's 2 inches, or no, Vincent's 10 and he's 2 inches shorter than his 8-year-old brother, who's already outgrowing him. And we see him erase it because he's embarrassed that his father's embracing his brother for growing so much. And everyone, it's just, I don't think the parents realize how much they're hurting their other kid, their firstborn, by just constantly saying that he can't do something and setting his brother up for success.
Which actually is an interesting little thing. It's also poking at it. Maybe pokes at it a bit more with Jude Law's character, but I think the brother also is used for this, which is the idea that there's this different kind of negative pressure on him. This idea that, oh, you've been engineered to be perfect and succeed. And so the idea that he lost this and he couldn't explain why, this this race in the water
does really defeat him. Yeah.
He eats at him and he feels like he's not lived up to his potential. And that's something Jude Law's character goes through as well, because he won a silver medal, which notably he was a swimmer. I like that detail. You could
say that his brother was kind of crippled by that, even.
Yes, emotionally. Yes, very good. No, I think all that stuff is if I have a complaint of the movie, if I have a critique that I want to make, is that it is a little contrived that the one of the two detectives that's investigating the murder at Gattaca happens to be the main character's brother. That is a coincidence, and it's something that I've always felt is a little bit contrived. But I always forgive it by the end, because when he actually comes to see him at the end, and like they have their argument and they go and have their swimming race again in the ocean, I love that stuff so much.
Really great,
yeah, the payoff is so good that I'm like, you know what, I'll accept the contrivance to get here, because it's too excellent. Because that's the other thing, like going back to like he's expecting to succeed, like he believes that as a kid. There's a moment where he kind of like mocks Vincent and says, hey, I could be an astronaut if I want to. Like,
yeah, I mean, the parents say when they are choosing if they're going to have a boy or a girl, they say, we want to give Vincent a brother. Like, this is the important relationship that he needs, because he can't he doesn't really have friends, I suppose, because he can't get into the schools. And I don't really know. We don't know everything, but it seems like they're worried about him being lonely and growing up alone. And even his little brother is just like, I'm better than you. Everybody says I'm better than you. And he wants to do like a blood brother pact with the cutting his thumb and stuff. And the other brother won't do it. And yeah, I really appreciate the arc of the relationship that is sort of represented through Jude Law as well, who also looks down on him, but has a change of heart and has
I think
actual faith in him and what that means, just having somebody believe in you.
I don't know if this is
what he wanted his brother for originally.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a strong like part of the movie necessarily that it focuses on, but I do think there's a little bit of that a brother by blood versus like a family member someone who becomes a family member who's not related by blood. Like the idea that Jude Law becomes more like the real brother that he was supposed to have in some way, who's there for him. The fact that he's also a swimmer, even though you never see him swim, obviously, because it's already happened off scene, but it's just a little detail that I don't even think I realized the first couple of times I saw the movie. I just, but that one time I watched it and they said, oh, I got a silver medal for swimming. I'm like, wait, swimming? I wonder if it's also meant to be a red herring where, like, it can't be because of the name, but like, I wonder if like maybe some audience members might think in their head, oh, they're going to reveal that he's the brother later on or something.
Yeah, it's a fake British accent.
Yeah. But like I do think that idea that there is this like pressure on the people to be perfect because they're told they're perfect, which it's not. I don't think it's as hard on them as it is for the people who are told no, you can't be anything. But there is a different kind of like problem with that is also affecting them mentally that has to be dealt with. So yeah, this it doesn't.
We even get that through Uma's character, and when they start to have romantic outings and stuff like that, and she says, before you go, like, you should know I have a heart thing. It's probably not going to affect me till I'm older, but that means my DNA might be damaged. Basically.
Yeah, they mentioned that it's when the cops are talking to the guy who runs the place. He says, oh yeah, we used to accept people with an acceptable level of like health like abilities. So she's presumably what he's talking about, where she's got like a small chance of it when she's maybe in her 60s, so we'll accept that kind of thing, as opposed to someone like Ethan Hawke's character who's
post-retirement age, which is not helpful anyway.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting dynamic, and I think she's there obviously as a love interest. She's there as a representative of someone else that's kind of in the middle of this debate, because she's kind of she's got a bit of a problem, but she's acceptable enough. I think it's also kind of like this idea that she has to like prove herself more. She's always like saying to like the flight director, like, am I still in line? And she always seems to be trying really hard, and that's it's like a weird sense because she is a woman. But I almost feel like this like sort of smaller condition she has where you're acceptable, but you're not as good as like these A+ candidates. I almost wonder if that's there to represent the idea of like, okay, this is like
you're like 3/4 of an actual guy.
Yeah, I do wonder if that's meant to represent like sexism in general in like this type of workplace. The idea that a woman has to work harder.
A little bit more of that kind of representation of what is it like for a woman to be in this universe as well, in this future. Maybe it's just a bit selfish. It's not necessary, I guess, for the story. I'm just, I am curious about that, especially since she brings up like, you should know that I'm, if you're going to go on dates with me, it's that I might have a genetic defect that would hurt our offspring. So
I think
really think about if you want to, be with me, kind of a thing.
I think the implication is presumably there is no discrimination for women if they are equally genetically to the men. and that's why I'm saying like her having this sort of defect is like why she kind of is there to represent actual discrimination. That's not extreme.
That seen as lesser.
Yeah, not extreme. Like oh yeah, we'll accept you, but you're getting paid less. That kind of discrimination, you know, like so. I think, and I'm not saying she actually does get paid less, but you know what I mean. So it's, I think that's an interesting dynamic to throw in there. Obviously, she has interesting chemistry with Vincent. The fact that the actors got married probably helps that, I imagine. But they do some interesting things with him connecting with the person, and it's the first person he connects with romantically, and kind of, you know, obviously by the end of the movie reveals who he is to and is honest with. And you know, I think he has a line later on where he's been trying to get off this planet like his whole life, and just before he does, he actually has a reason that he might want to stay for the first time ever.
That's sweet.
You know, it's this idea that there is someone out there that will understand him, which is kind of nice. And obviously Jude Law's character, Jerome's arc, is, like you said, he kind of does come to respect him more, and it is more of a brotherly relationship by the end. You know, at first it's very cynical, and he just wants this like help getting money, so he's very bitter about everything. And then later on in the film, you know, he intentionally, and it's, you know, he's got a dark ending, don't get me wrong, like Jude Law's character ultimately commits suicide at the end of the film, which is actually, we find out during the film, is what he was trying to do when he got injured. He actually was trying to commit suicide because he saw himself as a failure, because he's got all these gifts, he's been told he's the best, but he got a silver.
Yeah.
You know, he came second place. So all those expectations, and that's why I say it's like even more heavy on Jude Law's character than the brother characters, because Jude Law is like, no, he's at the point where he is suicidal because he feels that he's not living up to what society is saying he's supposed to be.
Yeah. But I love that he has the, you know, the that sort of serendipitous relationship with Vincent, to where he gets to live out his life, and because he just wants it so badly, he's able to succeed. Yeah. And maybe that's enough for him to feel like he has closure to where he can actually finish the job that he was going to do. Like, it's okay then if I'm going because someone is living my life who is worthy of it.
Yeah, I mean, he has that line towards the end where I let you use my body, but you've lent me your dream. And that's more valuable because that's something he never had before. He had these expectations because he was told he had them, and he went down this path. He didn't have a passion the same way that Vincent does. And obviously part of it is that Vincent is proving constantly. We find out during the film, and he reveals himself to Irene, Uma Thurman's character. You know, he says that, yeah, you've got like another 30 years expected on your heart. I'm already overdue. I'm supposed to already be dead, and I'm still here doing this. Yeah. It's that, you know, human determination, you know, do the impossible, yada yada, in a really kind of healthy way, which I really like. I have seen like a cynical read on this film be that astronauts, like, it can be a danger to your crew if you're not fit and healthy to go up, and like the idea that if he's faking any of his like health results, that he's actually endangering the crew of the mission. And I think that's a really cynical read, especially since in this movie, when we see him get on the ship at the end, they don't even wear astronaut suits. They go on a suit and tie and just get in a seat like they're going on a plane. Like it's so normal by this point for them to go into space. This is not. They're
going to Titan. Over in Saturn. That's pretty far.
Yeah.
Might as well dress casual. It's a long trip.
But like, you know, I think that's a very cynical read that kind of misses the point of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more symbolic than anything else, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, like, because he is still alive, he has defied all expectations and odds of his life expectancy, even. That he might be the one, you know, the one out of the 100, and the other 99 wouldn't do it, but this is his shot. That's why, like, I'm thinking about Neo in the Matrix. They kind of have similar themes of like, you can be special.
If somebody
believes in you, and
it's like, both are about not holding
the one.
But both of them are about not holding human beings back. And I think this one, obviously they're different, and I think one of the things that make them different is, I don't think this movie presents him as being that special, though. He's only 1 in 100. Neo's like 1 in...
Well, it's just because he wants it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Neo's 1 in like 7 billion or whatever, right? That's what Neo is. He's the 1 in 7 billion.
He's the one.
Yeah. Ethan Hawke's character Vincent, he is 1 in 100, which is not actually that high in the grand population of Earth.
Well, I don't mean like 1 in 100 people. Like, he has a 99% chance that he is going to die of heart disease by his early 30s. But his 1% chance is the thing that he's chasing. So he just has to work harder for it.
That's still 1 in 100 people. What? This has been the same thing.
It's not out of people, it's out of chances. That's his percentile that he might die.
Yeah, but if you represent that percentile as 100 people...
I don't think you do.
You can't. You absolutely can.
Oh, I don't think that's what they were talking about. Whatever.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Anyway, doesn't matter. The point is that what I was trying to say at the start of this statement before we went into this Neo comparison and 99 problems with a bitch ain't one or whatever we're saying is
What?
I was referencing a popular hip hop song, Tara, because I'm hip.
Mm.
No?
Who sang it?
Jay-Z?
Okay, yeah, you got
Is it? Oh, yes. All right. So what I was trying to say is that he's not that special here, and the implication being that Irene can also get this if she works hard. She can also be just as special. The moment we're kind of just bouncing around to whatever's relevant to the theme we're talking about. So I'll bring this up now. So at the end of the film, we'll go back and talk about everything else, but he's getting in for his flight. It's the end of the movie. He said goodbye to Irene. He's had, they've had their one last night together before he goes off. He's going in, but there's one last test that he didn't expect, and Xander Berkeley pulls him over and makes him piss in a cup, and Ethan Hawke obviously looks a little devastated and is like, I don't have a bag of piss ready, oh dear, and he pisses in the cup, and it's here where Xander Berkeley's character says, oh, I never did tell you about my son, and basically reveals that his son isn't all that he was supposed to be at birth, right? He's got a son who's an invalid, effectively, and sort of teasing that he is maybe going to be sympathetic to any of this. And Ethan Hawke's even saying here, before he gets what he's saying to him, he's like, I could have been there and back, but no one would have been the wiser. I could have done this kind of thing. He's kind of opening up because he realizes he's about to be found out. And obviously the moment here is Xander Berkeley, he sees the thing pop up saying invalid with Ethan Hawke's photo, and he hits a button and turns it to the valid one with Jude Law's photo. And he says something like, just think, my son's not perfect, but just think what he could be. And there's this idea that, he's going to sympathize because he loves his son. He's a good father, unlike Elias Koteas earlier on, who's like, face it, son, you're a loser. You're always going to be a loser. But the moment that gets me, the moment that hit me emotionally that I wasn't expecting, that kind of made me tear up, is Ethan Hawke sort of standing looking at him kind of in shock that he's just done this for him. And he just says, you're going to miss your flight, Vincent. He uses his real name.
Yeah,
it hit me.
That's a good one.
It hit me at a place where it was like, no, that's
he's the one who did it, right?
Yeah, Vincent's the one who did it.
He's going to somebody else, but he's the one who deserves it.
This was Vincent's dream. This is what Vincent wanted to do his whole life, and this guy is respecting him and saying, no, I'm not going to stop you from doing this. This is your dream. Go do it. You earned this. Go do it. And obviously the implication with the hand and the piss thing, or the hand and the piss, the hand and the dick thing, is that he's kind of suspected the whole time that he's not, really who he says he is.
Yeah, he says that, my son, you're my son's hero,
Oh yeah, he says that too. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and at first it's like, oh, because he's an astronaut going on this great mission, but no, it's because he's an invalid who's chased a dream and achieved it. Yeah,
you have to assume that he's told his son some of this and hopefully sworn him to secrecy, because it would really screw up the whole thing if his son starts talking to people. But I don't know, it's a really sweet moment, and obviously the music's swelling up at this point, and we get the slow walk onto the ship as he flies off, which happens as Jerome's setting himself on fire in the incinerator, which is obviously really dark. But I think what works about it is that if you look at it symbolically, there's this kind of idea that Jerome is dying and Vincent is taken off. This is where Jerome as a personality is just dying. Like he's just going to be Vincent now.
He's left him like 2 years supply of piss and blood. Not 2 years, 2 lifetimes. You said.
Yeah.
Of
piss, blood. Also, I think
skin.
nail clippings and skin. Yeah, and whatever else one might get.
It's a weird thing to hoard, but I guess it makes sense in the context.
And the context of this, it makes sense.
How did he get so much of it? He must have just been drinking a lot.
Every single day, yeah. Well, there's that joke at the start when he's first getting his piss sample, where he tests them before he leaves the house, and they keep being like bad because he's been drinking alcohol, and it's only the one last bag that's alcohol free, which gets us the line. There's more vodka in this piss than piss, which I don't know. It's not as good as the other lines I've brought up, but it's all right.
Yeah, it's only Xander lines, but they're pretty good.
Give me a slight chuckle. Yeah. No, like I think the ending is pretty perfect in a lot of ways, and I think it says a lot that we don't get, because I think like the first time I saw it, at least as an adult, when I was really like taking it in and getting everything, is I think it's interesting that there's not a scene with the brother after the race, because he has to save his brother again. You know, he has to once again save his brother. You know, I think in my head I almost expect every time a scene where the brother kind of accepts him, and says something like, you know, you have done this, you have kind of earned this, or in some way, but he never does. I think it's interesting that it leaves it maybe suggesting a cold ending where the brother doesn't accept it and is still kind of bitter about it. And
well, he doesn't turn him in.
He doesn't turn him in. True. Yeah.
So yeah. Maybe we can infer that at least he's letting him do his mission.
Yeah, he's going to at least stay back and stay out of it. Yeah. You know, and there's teases throughout that it is his brother, because he knows his name, the way he yells Vincent in the alleyway at one point when, you know, they're in pursuit and things like that. But it's interesting that his brother doesn't even recognize him, you know, because, you know, there's moments where he's looking at all the employees and Ethan Hawke standing right there, and he never has that moment where he's like, wait a minute.
I don't think Ethan does either, or Vincent does, right?
No, he doesn't. No, you're right. They don't recognize each other, which, you know, it's saying that it's not just the elite that have this problem. Even the discriminated side also have a problem where they don't even look at the other people.
I mean, his brother does say eventually that, you know, mom and dad thought that they outlived you. So like when Vincent just disappears, most people probably just assume he's dead. I mean, his brother doesn't say that he assumed that, but, you know, I guess so. They probably just thought, well, his heart must have given out and no one knows where he is and nobody's inquired.
Which is really sad.
He's not the good son.
But it's really sad no one looked for him. Like, no one really tried.
Yeah.
They just let him go. That is really sad.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they have their perfect kid.
I guess they do, yes. He's not that perfect. He's a mediocre detective. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did kind of get the feeling though he suspected that it was his brother quite early on, because he does kind of keep disagreeing with Alan Arkin. Every time Alan Arkin suggests something that would maybe get them close to him, he kind of like suggests something else. And he turns out to be right, because eventually it turns out to be the flight director who killed the guy, because the other guy was another high-ranking dude at Gattaca who was opposing this flight happening. And this flight director really wanted it to happen. So that's why he killed him.
Yeah, but Arkin was determined on finding this white whale of, who is this mundane that's not allowed here?
The mundane.
The mundane.
Yes. Yeah. So I think all that stuff is obviously the detective story of looking for this murder and possibly getting close to Vincent throughout is kind of the framework of which the main plot kind of operates around, and that's where everything else kind of slots in, like the romance with Irene, which, you know, at first it's kind of awkward, and she actually tests him in secret. You know, she gets a hair, and we see him leave this hair in the comb intentionally because he knows people will go snooping. And it turns out there's a place where you can go up and just hand in some DNA, and they'll test it to see if your partner's worth being with, because obviously the partner's going to necessarily.
They gave him a score too, right?
Yeah, 93 I think was. Oh, that's a catch. That's a catch. What's 100 then? Who's this perfect specimen?
I don't know. It's tough to beat Jude Law if you ask me.
Gary Busey. It's Gary Busey. I know it is. He's the perfect specimen. Now, because the woman that's in front is like just getting a swab off her lips because she just kissed someone, and she's like, "Yeah, I kissed him like an hour ago." So, yeah, filter out my DNA and give me the guy's stats.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, but she finds out that he's obviously at this point there's the fake DNA, so she's like, oh, it's perfect. He's this 93. And she sort of like admits this to him, and he's like, hey, do you want another hair? You can go test it if you want, or oh no, she says that to him. It's later on he does it to her. She gives him a hair and says, you can go test me and see if you're still interested. And he does this sort of moment where he's like, oh, the wind got it, and he's basically, I don't care, like I don't need to test you, which is kind of, I know it sounds quite weird in context, but it is actually quite romantic in the context of this. Yeah. So I don't give a shit, and obviously he doesn't give a shit. He knows that he's even way more like genetically broken, so why would he care?
Yeah. Plus it's Uma Thurman.
Yes.
She's stinking beautiful. So.
Yes.
Yeah, she's pretty perfect.
Yeah.
I noticed there's because aren't they like famously like a height couple where like she's much taller than him, especially because she has to wear heels all the time.
Maybe I don't know.
But in this movie, I noticed that there were shots where he was taller than her, and I thought, oh, I wonder if they're like Tom Cruising it, making him stand on a soapbox.
Well, to be fair, I don't think it's just because of that. Because there's a plot point where he has to be the same height as Jude Law, so he gets like his legs like stretched painfully, or whatever. I don't know what you call this process, but
I think they have to break his legs and let them heal again. Yeah,
in a more upright fashion.
Stretched out. Yeah, he's got weak calves now.
Yeah,
or weak shins.
Yeah, it's just for the scars is that he get hit with a car that was like that's what the fender was right at that line.
Yeah, actually the car designs were interesting in this because they look like older cars, but they sound futuristic.
It's a little, do you know what, it's a little trick actually. See if you make some of your stuff look older than present day, it does actually add a timeless. It's like using classical.
Even the detectives, they look like they're from some noir film.
It's like using classical music in 2001. It actually it antedates it because this was already old when it came out, so it doesn't feel like, oh, this is dated. It just feels like, no, we're using classical music because we want it to sound like classical music.
The uniforms they all wear too look a little bit like they're from like North Korea or something, or maybe China influence, because that was kind of this little stage of 90s appropriation where women wore a lot of like the Chinese style dresses and tops and stuff. And I noticed it here, but I guess it looks more like you would imagine in like the communist countries, like North Korea, where they have the same kind of button down and color schemes even. Yeah,
their first big date is to go to a pianist. Which really upsets Jude Law. Jude Law feels really left out that Ethan Hawke's going out on a date, and he feels really sad about it and gets drunk. He actually runs into another actor that I forgot was in this. Dean Norris has a small role as a detective that Jude Law runs into when he's out, and Dean Norris gets really kind of like, wait, you work at Gattaca? Because he takes his DNA, he's like, you work at Gattaca? But you're a cripple. And Jude Law's like, I hurt my leg. I'm healing. How dare you speak? And he gets really uptight about it and like get offended.
Gets real elite on him.
But obviously he's feeling a lot of insecurities right now because obviously later on he comes to accept and sort of appreciate that this man's living his dreams using his name and body. But right now he's feeling like, oh, I should be able to do this. I should be able to go out. He's feeling So, but. Interesting little detail that's revealed at the end of this is that the pianist has 12 fingers. He has 6 in each hand, and this is like a genetic design thing, and kind of ties into that idea. Like, it doesn't seem like everyone's like a job role's picked out for you at birth, but this almost seems like maybe it was because you need 12 fingers to play this piece.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like they can tell that somebody will have an affinity towards music or math or whatever, and be able to say like, okay, well, we know that your son will be able to be a great pianist or a musician. We could just give him 12 fingers and then he'll be the best. Yeah, but because we already know he's probably going to go that direction.
It's an interesting little reaction to it though, because Ethan Hawke kind of is not shocked, but he's a little surprised by it. And Uma Thurman says, "Oh, you didn't know," and Ethan Hawke says, "Oh well, it's about how you play. It's not about how many fingers you have." Which, I mean, yeah, you could just swap this out with. It's not about the size; it's how you use it. But she says, "Oh, you can only a little
insecure,
yeah, but you can only play that piece with 12 fingers." And I think it's kind of nudging at another little thing that's in here that I kind of like is this idea that us, like obviously yes, the discrimination is bad and no one should be held back. But it's this idea that there have been like not that someone being able to play a music piece that was impossible for is that important, but the idea that in general, yeah, there's other advancements in society because people are at their best, because we're able to have people who are doing the things that they naturally are good at, that they're supposed to be good at. It's actually improving like science and things like that, because you've got all the people who are the perfect minds to be scientists became scientists, and they're all working really hard on curing things and inventing stuff that's going to make, the teleporters, like, 2 months away, like it's coming because
It also makes you go ahead.
I was going to say, so I think like Ethan Hawke's like reaction to that, and then her kind of saying, yeah, but you can only do that with those extra fingers, is saying there are some benefits, like, it's not just about saying flat out there should be no, none of this kind of thing.
Well, it also sort of paints a picture of the world where, like, this probably started off with the fact that we wanted to make sure that your kid didn't come out with disease and stuff that will hurt them. But now it's been around long enough that they're starting to make some modifications, and some, like, you can say how attractive someone is, or you can say, like, if they can have not just like not have disease, but also have a genetic advantage over other people, and in like a new type of way, even
Pandora's box, effectively.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of like this is just dipping your toe into what could potentially come down the line if
it's a slippery slope. Yeah,
we get to see where this goes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like it kind of goes back to that scene with the parents near the start where, we wanted to eliminate diseases, but we don't want necessarily to give all these unnatural advantages. Just, take away the risk of cancer and heart disease, which, again, that part seems, we'd all do that. If we could do that when we were having kids, we would. Like, that's just,
That sounds good.
Yeah. That's a net positive. But all these other things is where, okay, this is where the cynical side comes in, and the greed and the all that stuff. So, I mean, there's already such a discrepancy between the working class and the rich as it is in the world. Imagine if the rich could pay to make sure that their kids would be perfect at everything now. Like,
well, I mean, yeah, they kind of do, right? I mean, the private schools exist, and
sure, yeah, but more so, like,
right. Obviously, this is a much more science fiction version of that, but or even like the big controversy that happened with the Full House mom and her kid, like going to just paying to make sure that she gets to a great college or university just so it's on her resume, not that she actually has to
is this the
take
actress
a test to get in,
who's also from Desperate Housewives? Because that's what I know her from.
I don't know,
I think it might be, unless it wouldn't surprise
Uncle
me.
Jesse's wife or girlfriend or whatever.
It wouldn't surprise me if there's two actresses that have done this. That wouldn't be that shocking, to be honest.
John Stamos' girlfriend or wife in the show.
I've never seen this. I've never seen this
what?
show. I don't know who this is. Okay.
You know who John Stamos?
Well, I know who John Stamos is, but I've never seen. I don't know his character. I don't know who else is on this show.
Okay, but I don't know this actress's name, but yeah.
Is it Felicity Huffman?
I think that was one of them. Yeah, because it like opened up like more.
Oh, it was like a whole ring. It was like all these parents colluding together. Okay, all right.
Yeah, to get their dumb celebrity children into universities like Yale or whatever. I don't know.
That's just. Yeah, makes you want to yell at the moon.
That was dumb.
It was. I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone who's listening for that terrible joke. Yeah. So anyway, so that was their kind of the big date, and then obviously then there's things where they're at this other place and they have to run out because the police show up to like just do random like genetic testing on people, and he knows he's screwed if to test them, so he has to run out and he punches like a cop out to like get away, and she's freaking out a little bit, but she at least feels some sense of trust or whatever to just stay quiet when the brother is like in the alleyway shouting for them. And so she's learned some stuff here, and obviously there's an implication of things, but it's not until
she thinks that he's killed the guy. She thinks he's the murderer.
But she's still kind of going along with things. She doesn't necessarily hate him for it, because she still goes along with the lie. So the next day, I think it is, I mean the whole movie takes place over a week basically, in the present day part. So I think it probably is just the next day. But we get the big sequence where the brother character, he is kind of put things together a little bit, and he knows that this guy Jerome, quote unquote, is like who he maybe wants to go talk to. So he goes looking for him, and Uma Thurman hears this and actually goes and warns Ethan Hawke and says, hey, you look like you're feeling a bit under the weather, you should go home. And he does, but then Jerome insists when he sees her, oh, do you know where this guy lives? Oh, you're going to take me to him then. So we get this big sequence where Ethan Hawke calls Jude Law, who's like, putting his shavings of like his skin into a bag or something. Something creepy and weird. Which, by the way, just while I'm saying that, like, it's amazing how not disgusting, even though it is really disgusting when you think about it, the opening title sequence is, which is all these like slow motion shots of like nail clippings and stuff hitting the floor.
Yeah. Well, when you've seen the shit that I've seen at work, you wouldn't be grossed out by it anymore.
Oh, so Jude Law like climbs up the stairs because obviously he can't walk, he's in a wheelchair. He's pulling himself up the stairs, trying to get up so that he doesn't look suspicious. So he's sitting in a regular chair, and he has to pretend that he's in a relationship with Uma Thurman. When they finally walk in, he's like, "Where's my kiss, darling?"
What a dick move.
It's a dick move, especially since she goes for the head, which is a bit more, okay, that's a bit more acceptable. And then he's like, right here, on the lips. Which, and he takes his blood, and the brother's like, and he's like, were you expecting someone else? So he leaves, and there's a great shot here where it sort of shows Ethan Hawke coming up the stairs behind Jude Law, and the focus shifts. It's a really great shot because you can just imagine this is Uma Thurman looking at him and then shifting her focus to him walking up behind him. And it's a really cinematic line, but like Jude Law says, "Hi, Jerome," and then Ethan Hawke goes, "Yes, hi, Jerome." Like they say Jerome to each other, just to really sell it. But this is where it all comes out really, and like he chases her down when she tries to go away and says, "Hey, look, I'm an invalid. Call me what you want, but they told me I couldn't do this. I'm not a killer though. Just let's get that out there right away."
Although weird that you're more upset about this versus the killing, but that's okay. I think they sleep together when she suspects he's the killer.
Some girls like bad boys. What can you say? Because it's after that they go to the, or maybe it's after the piano thing where they go to the all the satellites or solar panels or whatever it is that reflect the light. Yeah,
I really like the scene. You sort of brought up that they had to run away, but I do really like the scene of they get to like a traffic stop, and you can see that they're trying to scan people for contact lenses, so he has to remove his. But it also means that he's blind now. He can't see.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way. And he like gets out of the swab test by like requesting a finger.
It's another great representation of the movie as a whole. There's a scene where she crosses this busy road and goes to the other side, and she's like, "Hey, come on, why don't you come see this?" And he's like, "Shit, I can barely see. I can see like blurry lights, and that's about it."
Yeah.
But it's
scary. He
has to take this leap of faith and just walk across. Like he has to just go across, and it's like it's kind of it sums up the whole movie. He's like, your chances of making it across are pretty slim, but he's going to do it anyway. But that's kind of what lets you know that he really likes her and cares about her, is that he's willing to try this. He cares about her enough that he's going to make this trip.
And she brings it up too. She's like, could you not see when you did that? Like, yeah.
Which I'm sure in hindsight, yeah, she's quite impressed by that. She feels touched by that.
You almost died for me.
But yeah, obviously, in some level, she should be able to sympathize, and it doesn't take much because once she's like had a day to like reflect on it and think about everything she's found out, they do have this connection, and they spend the night together one last time. I actually love the visual. The first time they spend the night together, and he wakes up at her place, and he sees like his hair on the pillow, and he's like, "Oh shit." And he goes outside to the beach and just starts scrubbing himself with a rock like he does in the furnace. And it's just there's this visual of Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, he's using the sand and stuff to like try to sandpaper his skin off.
And he's like, it's like he's just like butt ass naked on the beach, and he looks so vulnerable, and not just because he's naked, he just looks so scared and like terrified that he's going to be found out. And obviously it shouldn't be that way, right? That's part of the lesson of the movie, is that obviously this is all bad, that he has to do this, and so I love it. I love that little detail. But their stuff works quite well. It's not like the most Like, I don't think you necessarily... I think everything works in the context of what she represents in the story for him and all the different sort of connections he's making, as opposed to being this great love story that I'm so invested in as a love story. But I think it works really well in the context of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, I think I would have liked a little bit of more of what it's like to be a woman in this situation. But if it's not the right movie to add more than that, then I mean, I get it. She's there for his character, and we get a little bit more glimpses of the world through her. But it would have been nice to have just a skosh more.
I don't even necessarily disagree. Like, it would have been an interesting angle that I don't think would have felt like it inflated the movie too much. I think it would all still make perfect thematic sense to give more of her point of view.
I want like what Starship Troopers does, you know, where it's just every little background extra thing has a line that would be like, oh, that's actually quite dark if you turn it on its head a little bit. I like those, you know, those science fiction future worlds where things seem like paradise and perfect, but, you know, it's all just a surface layer.
Yeah. I think getting more of her point of view to represent that side of it probably would be quite interesting. And maybe that was just something they never thought of doing because, you know, Hollywood, especially Hollywood, you know, 20 plus years ago, or, you know, maybe they thought it'd be too much to add in. I don't know, but I mean, I get it. It's not essential to the main themes of the movie, but
I
think it could add. Nice. It could add to them, though. Like,
yeah, I think it would add to world building.
Yeah. Yeah, so they have their big emotional goodbye. Jude Law readies all of his, you know, blood and piss and stuff, so that
working overtime,
so that Jerome will always be here when he needs them. And it's that sad thing that he's kind of admitting that he's a little bit dead inside, and like he just exists to be this, you know, physical body
literal
for him.
Blood bangs.
Yeah. So it's obviously quite a sad ending for him, but again, if you look at it symbolically, there's like a kind of an interesting read on it, I think, and what it represents, the idea that he's burning whilst Vincent soars above, you know. So
I mean, there's a lot of implications that are saying that even though these are genetically perfect people, they're far from perfect. And yeah, like you've alluded to before, the pressure that everyone must be under to be perfect, to live up to that is probably just the weight of it is too much for a lot of people.
Yeah. Which is why the freedom to sort of make mistakes and explore and decide what you want to be is a big part of life and should always be a part of life, you know?
Sometimes you need to just prove people wrong.
Yeah.
That's like the greatest motivation.
Well, I mean,
not always. It's good to have a support system. That's what the brother and Jude Law were there to represent too. Yeah,
Jude Law obviously becomes supportive, as does Uma Thurman. And you know, even like their ending's not sad. Like, you know, he implies that she's the one reason that he's kind of ever had to not want to leave, and she says, "Yeah, a year's not that long. Like, you know, one time around the sun. Like, basically saying, like, I'll still be here when you get back. Like, go and fulfill you the dream that you've spent your entire life." You know, she probably respects how passionate he is about this, that he's devoted his life and, you know, this, like,
I mean,
way.
Yeah, she has to understand the risk.
Like, this is so in depth, and even if he gets found out when he comes back, I almost think in some level that's okay, because then he gets to say, well, I proved you all wrong. I did it.
Yeah.
Right? Arrest me all you want, but I did this. You know?
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. So no, I think it's a very uplifting film. It's very sort of, like I say, it's all about the human spirit and like saying, no, we can do this. It doesn't matter if the odds are against us. To quote Han Solo, never tell me the odds.
No. Look at you. We watched one Star Wars movie and now you're quoting left and right.
I've seen all the Star Wars movies before anyone. Just in case someone finds this the first episode they watch, and they literally think I've only watched one Star Wars movie.
Yeah, pretty good movie flick.
It's great. I love it.
I'm glad we revisited it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what your memories of it were. Did you remember loving it, and this was just a reaffirmation, or was it like sold to you?
Oh yeah, I remember it being a very good movie, especially watching it in like school and stuff, because they tend to show a lot of the same movies.
This was
But
more
this was more
interesting.
up my alley because it
Yeah.
was sci-fi and it was kind of new also.
More interested in Of Mice and Men for the 10th time. Yeah, I agree.
Oh my god, right? Man.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're kind of at final thoughts and just getting ready to rate the movie. It's I think it's a wonderful science fiction film and its thematic ideas and the characters that serve those ideas very well, but it's more of an ideas movie than as a character movie. Obviously, it works because the character, like Vincent does represent a lot of things and you do care about him achieving his goal, and it is kind of sweet when ultimately at the end, it's an act of human kindness that lets him finally do it. Like, he could have been stopped at the end, but just one act of human kindness is what lets him achieve it ultimately. And that's like really sweet and really nice. And
we love an underdog story.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's just in our DNA. You can't code that out.
No, you cannot. So yeah, just this wonderful. Music's great. Visuals are great. And actually, that's one thing I wanted to mention since we're wrapping up here is, I was like, you know what, Andrew Niccol, who directs this movie, I'm like, have I ever seen anything else by this guy? Like, what does he do? Because I don't know him. So I looked him up, right? And he's not directed a lot of movies. This was his first, believe it or not.
What?
And
Really?
he went on to do some other things. He did like that Nicolas Cage movie, Lord of War. He did that Justin Timberlake movie, In Time. And
That's a sci-fi one.
yeah, and he did just a couple of different things that, honestly, his filmography looks worse the more you go down it. Like, the newer stuff you look at, it looks like trash. So that's a real shame. The one notable thing I will say, though, is that he didn't direct it, obviously, but he did actually write, or at least the screenplay he wrote, The Truman Show.
Oh, well, okay.
Which was the year after this. That was 1998. So that's, his best days were 97 and 98. He directed this and then wrote The Truman Show. Like,
Truman Show's so good.
oh, it's so good. Talk about another great science fiction. Like, Truman Show, if I'm comparing the two now that there's a reason to, because this guy's involved in both, I would say they're both similar in that they're both really strong science fiction ideas, and they both have strong characters. I would say that Truman Show probably wins a little because Peter Weir may be a better director, but I would say that Truman as a character is even more empathetic to the audience than even Vincent is. Vincent is pretty empathetic, but I think Truman's a better realized character.
Yeah, you're right.
But that's not to knock this film, because I love Gattaca, and I'm about to give it a very high rating. So, Tara, what are you rating Gattaca?
Gattaca.
Yeah.
That was actually in sync on my end, but not on yours. So I am going to rate this one pretty high. I'm going to rate it a 9 because I think the science fiction ideas are just so strong. I think the acting is great in it as well. And yeah, I am surprised that he sort of directed not great stuff. I think Lord of War, if I remember, was all right. But I haven't heard good things about In Time, so that surprises me. I can definitely see some parallels, since you mentioned it, to Truman Show as well. But I think, in any case, yeah, I think this is a very strong 90s sci-fi movie that is very deserving of, of its reputation. I think it's received pretty well.
Yeah, Gattaca is pretty well liked in the I don't know if it's like super mainstream, but I think movie nerds definitely like Gattaca.
Yeah. It's a very strong 90s sci-fi movie with cool sci-fi concepts, and yeah, there's probably more to be explored even in this world if they wanted to. Like, is your career determined at birth, or is it something that is determined after you're born, or something that can be determined before you're born? Not just with the pianist, but like, what other people's lives are like going through this, and are there just blue people walking around now because parents decided they wanted a blue kid? I don't know. Like, it's kind of a neat future if you wanted to go back into that world.
Reading Watchmen recently or something? Yeah. Did you rate it?
9.
9. Well, that's easy because I'm also going to give it a 9. I think it's a great movie that is just full of ideas that all kind of like work in sync together. Good cast, great visuals and music. Like, I think it all just kind of comes together and clicks really well into a final product. There's maybe a couple of little things we said, yeah, they could have maybe explored a little bit more of this, or maybe they could be a little bit more of that, but by and large, it comes together wonderfully. And the fact that, I've watched this now maybe half a dozen times over 20 years or whatever it's been, it genuinely has probably gotten a little better every time I've watched it, because I'm paying attention to things, and I'm thinking about the themes in different ways, or I'm thinking about character decisions in different ways. So yeah, I'll give it a 9. And then Truman Show's even a little bit better, which tells you how great Truman Show is. I
think we both gave that one 9.5.
Yeah, I think we did. So we're consistent. We're on track with our scale, which is good.
Yes.
So good stuff. Well, there you go. That's Gattaca. That is the episode. Obviously, there's been a little bit of a gap between this and the last episode. I was on vacation. We didn't get far ahead enough before. We tried to. It didn't quite work out. So apologies for that. But we we're back, and we did almost record an episode in person together, because if you're a fan of Streams After Midnight, you'll see that I did that with Tim. I was in California, but it never quite came to be. So
you can decide on which movie.
Pretty much. We did pick something that if we get a chance again, we'll probably do. So, watch this space.
I don't remember what it was. But
oh, good. That means I can change it and lie. Excellent news. But there you go. That is that. So yeah, we are back. We should be weekly once again. Next week we'll be doing the vote winner for October. A little bit late, but we're getting to that next week, and that is The Fifth Element, continuing 90s season. There is another 90s vote up. It'll be done by the time this episode goes out, admittedly. But there's kind of like a lesser known 90s like batch of movies. Well, maybe not lesser known, but lesser respected. Because the 3 movies we put in the 90s vote that Fifth Element won were all good movies that most people like. The second 90s vote
is the B tier.
Is like one movie is actually quite good, but it's a bit more cult, and it's a foreign movie. And then the other 2 are less beloved, shall we say. So
get on over and vote, everybody.
Well, it's too late now by the time they see this, but I appreciate this.
We've got a local election here coming up in like 2 days.
Oh, right, okay. Well, yeah, vote in general. Yes, good advice. So yes, look out for Fifth Element next week. And then more 90s movies coming throughout November, and we'll get to it. Also, by the end of November, you should expect the first Avatar, because obviously we have to do that before Avatar.
Oh my God, we're getting a new James Cameron movie.
We are. We're going to be able to review a brand new James Cameron movie.
I'm so pumped.
So that is exciting.
What am I saying? Of course, it'll be good.
I'm expecting it to be good. So yes, let us know what you thought of Gattaca in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell. Of course, you can support the show by hitting the super thanks button, sharing out the show, or of course, on a permanent basis, you can go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support us and get some bonuses for your trouble. There's 2 main bonus things you get on a monthly basis. Tara, explain the 2 bonus things they get every month.
Well, the classic but true and faithful is our bonus episode that we do every month for Patreons only. And then the new thing that we do, newish, I guess, getting a couple months in now, is that we also do something called the Ace Movie Meltdown, where we just chat. We just talk about stuff we watched, stuff that we did, stuff that we like, things, get to know us a little bit better. It's mostly just movies we watch, because I watch a lot of movies.
The structure is basically we each give each other a sci-fi quiz for the other person, and then we talk about all the movies we've been watching throughout the month that aren't sci-fi, so just whatever we've been watching. So if you want to hear our thoughts on lots of other movies, it's a fun show. People seem to like it, so that's really? At the $5 tier. I think people like it. Yeah.
Cool.
It's a sentiment I seem to get from people. So yeah, go check out that, and of course check out the new show on Mail Fuzz Movies. Joining the Ace and Streams After Midnight is the Collector's Cut, which I'm doing with David. We work through franchises and themes on that. The first franchise is Dirty Harry, so go and check out that. When this goes out, the first episode will be going up on Saturday the 5th of November. But if you're a patron at the early access tier or above, it's already there, so you can go check it out
Did
right
you
now.
pick that date on purpose?
No, it just happened to be the Saturday, but yeah.
Remember, collector's cut in November.
So yeah, we had some good discussions on the first. As of right now, we've recorded the first 3 Dirty Harry episodes, so I can tell you they're all interesting discussions. So go and have a look and see if you're into that as well. And that'll also have a bonus episode every month, as does Screams After Midnight. So
Whoa, so much good stuff.
yeah, so if you like all the movie podcasts that we do, there's a lot of goodies on Patreon. But that is the show. That is the Atomic Cinema Experiment. So thank you very much once again for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching the science fiction and computer at Salsa.